Hey guys, what's up? Sorry for the lighting. I'm out in the porch because this is like the only quiet spot that I have right now. The only decent spot I have to record something for you guys. It's part of the reason why I haven't had videos coming up lately. It's not only been very busy for me these past couple of months, but when I do find time to at least try to record something, the rooms that I can use have things going on in it. And not only that, I mean, there's something else that I'm editing. There's two things that I'm trying to edit that don't necessarily need me to record anything on top of it, but then I need to find the time to do it. It's just been nuts. Anyway, I thought I would do this really quick video to make up for the fact that I haven't done one in a while, and it is somewhat timely to talk about this, and that's on Bruce Lee and some of the rather problematic things that have been happening around his name and his legacy lately. When it comes to Bruce Lee, it seems that there's two camps. There's kind of a third, but that's the one that's really quiet and people don't really pay much attention to these days. It seems that people tend to fall into two camps with Bruce. Either they deify him or they vilify him. And it's rare to find, people who just want to see him as what he actually was and what he himself said that he would like to be seen as, a human being, And a human being has, their pros and their cons. They got their good points and their bad points. They got their strengths and their flaws. But recently there have been some things happening with Bruce that have been making those who want to vilify him really salpitate, And I want to address those things as well as some of the things that I'm seeing that have also been kind of deifying him that kind of get on my nerves. I'm sure you guys have already, heard, the controversy that's been popping up with Quentin Tarantino and Bruce Lee's family, particularly Bruce's daughter, Shannon, who has been very upset with Quentin Tarantino's depiction of Bruce in his most recent movie, Once Upon a Time in America. Was it called Once Upon a Time in America? Or something like that. I'll have the exact title on the screen. I keep forgetting the name of it. But basically, Tarantino portrayed Bruce as this overly cocky, somewhat kind of abusive, he's like, I'm the greatest thing, around. And, he has Bruce acting, he's the greatest, I can beat all you guys up, I can kill you guys and all this type of stuff. And then he has his main character, who's supposed to be this killer, go over and basically knock Bruce down a peg. And Bruce Lee's daughter took offense to that depiction of him in the movie. And Tarantino was basically did not apologize for his depiction. And has actually recently doubled down on it. He said he's sorry that, Shannon was upset by it. And she's like, look, she has, every right to defend him because, he's her dad. Of course she would. But he's like, for everybody else, shut the hell up. I portrayed Bruce exactly how he was. People reported that he was abusive to stuntmen and he was overly cocky and, boastful and arrogant and, all this sort of stuff. And this is exactly what happened to him. And he said that I'm only basing this on, what this writer who was writing an account of, because remember his movie's based on a true story that happened, in Hollywood, with the Manson family and all that. And a book that was supposed to be documenting Bruce at that time was saying that, I got this from here and this author, backs me up on this. Funny thing is, the author that he's claiming that he got his, depiction of Bruce from was like, nah, that's not... I never said that about Bruce. I never said that, he was abusive to the American stuntmen or that he looked down on American stuntmen, which is what Tarantino is claiming. It's not true. So one thing about Tarantino, I like his films, and he can be a fun person to watch in an interview, but he can be a jerk, And in this particular instance, I think he's just being a jerk. There is enough evidence out there to show that Bruce wasn't the jackass that he's trying to claim he was. And, it takes an honest dude to admit, and a big, someone big inside, humble enough to admit when they've made a mistake. He made a big mistake here. And instead of just simply like, okay, fine, or maybe I just did this because I wanted my main character to look awesome. No, he's just like, no, this is the way he was. That's not how he was, Like the closest you can say that Bruce was looking down on American stuntmen, and this was also documented, was that when he was on the set of the Green Hornet, which is when this, when he based this so-called fight between his main character and Bruce, he was trying to get the stuntmen to make the fights look a lot more believable, and it was about like, look, you guys have this whole thing about like, I'll do a punch and the guy is reacting to it a foot away. That you can't sell that. That's not believable. It's got to be like an inch away. And he was trying to show them that, and I'm pretty sure there were accidents on set because of this, because when you try to get a group of people to fake taking a hit, and they're not used to doing it so close, of course there's going to be accidents, but that doesn't mean that he was beating on them on purpose like Tarantino was trying to claim was going on. And the funny thing is, there is footage of Bruce. People think that they're training videos. They're not really training videos. I mean, you'll see him hitting the punching bag, and they're hitting the punching bag. But you'll also see him do things like a spin kick, and you see the person like get hit by it. That, he's not really hitting the dude. That's more of trying to sell the hit, like teaching people how to sell the hit. You'll see stuff like that where they're practicing fight choreography. They're not actually sparring. And this kind of goes along with that. And again, there's evidence, to support this. I mean, hell, here's where things get crazy. Because, again, if a lot of people want to vilify him and say he was this arrogant jerk and he was bullying people, no. And then there was something that recently came out, which is also like making people salivate, and that's his drug usage. A letter recently has come out. The daughter of one of his older students, not Bob Wall, Bob something else, I keep forgetting his name, but there was some letters that were going back and forth between the two, and it turns out that that dude was kind of Bruce's supplier, not just of hashish, but possibly of other things too. And this has kind of thrown the Bruce Lee community in an uproar, and I'll have to say I'm not exactly surprised by that, because of the kind of man he seemed to have been, the time period which this took place in, and the crowd that he was hanging around. I'm not surprised. Hollywood culture, star culture, 60s, early 70s, I'm not surprised. But people are trying to use this to kind of tear the guy down. And those who don't want to tear the guy down, they want to deify him. I've been noticing, like, over the years, like, they're just vaulting this guy to almost like godhood status. And like, he's this perfect guy who could do no wrong. China in particular really seems to love doing that with him. Like, over the years, I mean, they got a statue of him. There are people, dressing up in the yellow jumpsuits and doing all the nunchuck stuff and putting up on TikTok or whatever video service they got there. People are, quoting him over and over again, like he's this greatest martial artist around. And while I'm not trying to take away from his achievements, and he's got a lot of achievements, and he's changed both the martial arts world and the cinematic, world in terms of action. He introduced a lot that people are, appreciating to this day and, taking advantage of to this day. But he was also just a human being. He had his faults. He admitted, for instance, having a problem controlling his anger. You hear this in interviews all the time. Well, he said, the few interviews that we have of him, he will talk about his anger. One in particular, he says, I know I have a violent temper. I got an explosive temper. He admitted that he's still having a problem controlling that. Another thing is, there was something of an arrogant streak to him. Not to the extent that he wants to necessarily look down on people, especially people there's a lot of stories of his compassion and how much he cared about other people, things like that. And, how well he treated people. But there's also you can tell the thing about Bruce is that he wanted to be cool. That's the thing that I want to kind of get across. He liked being cool. You can tell from the clothes he wore, the swagger he had, the way he carried himself, his speech patterns. He liked being cool. He liked being the cool guy in the room. He liked being the center of attention. yes, that's going to come off as arrogant because it takes a certain brashness to be, yeah, check me out. Look how awesome I am. For anybody who doesn't think that's true, look back to the famous so-called Lost interview of his where he's talking about his scene in Longstreet, and he's quoting his line from Longstreet. You know, everyone knows this one, the be like water part. Look at his face after he quotes the line. It's on YouTube. Go look at after he does the whole be like water, my friend, like that. See? Watch his face a few seconds afterwards, and you see him like, yeah, he's feeling himself. That's one of the things. He liked being the impressive dude in the room. He liked being the one that goes, oh yeah, that is cool, man. Like he liked that. But I know a lot of dudes like that, and they aren't necessarily jerks. They just kind of get off in that sort of thing. And he kind of, you can tell he was struggling with that as well. Like, he acknowledged his faults, and you can tell by some of the things he says about, like, being a star and what it means and the fact that he likes being an actor. It's like, on one hand, you can tell he's enjoying it, but on the other hand, he also knows that the only reason why he's being put on this pedestal is because they're making a big deal about what he does. Remember, in that same interview, he talks about, like, look, it's just something that the public calls you, but it's just, I'm just an actor, you know? I'm not a star. And then another time you're saying that I feel like I'm a monkey in a zoo where I got to watch what I say and watch what I do, you know? I'm the dude that they're like, monkey, play tricks. So on one hand, like, it's like he's enjoying the attention. He enjoys being cool. He enjoys being like, you know, a Chinese James Dean. But on the other hand, he knows how that sort of atmosphere can gas his head. Remember, he was a philosophy major. And people into that sort of thing understand the illusions of life. And he was aware of that as well. So what am I trying to say here? Basically what I'm trying to say is that the dude was just a human being. A talented human being. Certainly one who's contributed a lot to martial arts and, you know, a lot to cinema. And, you know, and even in philosophical ways, I think he's contributed a few things that might at least spark up a conversation. But he was a man. He was a human being. Human beings have faults as well as strengths. They have virtues as well as vices. He had his. Doesn't make him a villain. Doesn't make him an asshole. Doesn't make him a god or a deity either. And I think if we're going to be putting any sort of value to his legacy, if we're going to properly cherish or honor his memory, I think we should be doing it by seeing him as the human being he was and not as some kind of, you know, brash jackass, nor as this ultimate super philosopher god of martial arts. He is neither of those things. You know, and somebody who appreciates learning the truth about stuff, like, that's how I think we should be focusing on him. Anyway, that's that. I am way behind on stuff I need to put up on YouTube. I know, and I apologize for it, but I hope this is something that at least tides you guys over a bit until I can get up the stuff I really want to put up. So, take care. Catch you guys later.